Well, hello and welcome to the Owatonna Today Show, your community connection since 1991. My name is Pete Connor. Your show is host on this Wednesday, July 12th of 2017. A great show, great information. You don't want to go somewhere while this one is on. We have Dan McIntosh, Steele County attorney, who's going to be talking about child and adult protection services. And we're going to have both sessions with Dan. So it'll be a full meal of this information, which is great stuff. It's important stuff, and so you do want to stay with us. As a reminder, we'd appreciate any input that you have for people that you'd like to see as guests here on Owatonna Today. Or if you have an event or an organization that you would think would need some publicity, why don't you let us know about that? Contact us at owatonnatoday.charter@charter.net or by calling Leanne Alt, our show's producer, at 390-5751. And now we're going to take a quick break for some messages from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with Dan, so please don't go away.
Hi, I'm Dr. Beth Giltvet.
And I'm Dr. Nick Vincelli of Horizon Eye Care.
We want you to see what you love and love how you see. We're proud sponsors of the Owatonna Today Show.
Welcome back to the Owatonna Today Show, your community connection, and a big welcome to Dan McIntosh, Steele County attorney.
Thanks for having me.
Nice, good to have you. Always good to have you here. I asked Dan if he's a barrister. We have a child in England, so I wanted to know if he's a barrister or whatever the other one is, and he just said he's an attorney.
No wig.
No wig.
No wig
you
in
don't
America.
Get a wig. Yeah, okay, you're happy for that.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, we shouldn't waste any more time talking about other things, because this topic of child and adult protection services is really, really important, and we want to catch as much as you can give us about it and what's going on here, not only in Owatonna, but certainly throughout the county.
Sure.
There's a need for it, I guess, so perhaps you can just give us an outline as to what it is what's happening.
Thank you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about these cases that we have. A lot of times the criminal cases that we deal with get more publicity or more well-known, but just as important for public safety and public welfare are child protection and adult protection cases, and our office is involved in both of those in representing the Human Service Agency, Minnesota Prairie, so we may represent them in a petition for child protection action or adult protection action. And our practice in the office has kind of evolved over time. When I started back in 2001, we had one person doing the child protection cases as part of her caseload. And she was very good at it, a statewide expert. That was Christine Long, who's now a judge in Rice County. And we had one person doing the adult protection cases as part of his responsibilities, and that was Doug Ruth, the county attorney. So when I was appointed county attorney, we were having an increase in cases, and I thought it was important to put teams of people on those caseloads so we had good backup and just more cross-training. And we've operated like that since 2010. And in that time, certainly on the child protection side, our reports have really gone up, and particularly over the last few years. That is not necessarily an indication that there's more child abuse going on. I think especially in the 2010 to 2015 period, there was a lot of statewide publicity about some very egregious child protection cases that had gone on, and in 2015, the governor convened a task force that got together with child protection practitioners across the state and came up with, I think it was 90 different recommendations for counties and county human service agencies to adopt. And so since then, our number of reports have really gone up. That's a good thing in my view, because we want to be out there. We want to have people out there making sure that children are safe. If they are not, we want to be able to respond appropriately.
So, as the county attorney in your department, is not necessarily, once you get them, does not necessarily mean that you're off to filing charges. You could be working well beneath that level.
Correct. And the process works like this. There's a report that will come in to Minnesota Prairie, our human service agency, and they have an intake worker who will kind of scan the information, do some follow-up information get some follow-up information. And just recently, in mid-June of this year, we started a multidisciplinary team for the screening of those cases. So that includes the social workers, any social workers who might have worked with the family in the past, but now it also includes our office, and there's an attorney present at those screenings every day, and then also a member of law enforcement, either in the Owatonna or the Steele County Sheriff's Office, or Blooming Prairie if the case originates there. Sure. And the idea behind that was actually one of the recommendations that came out of the governor's task force. The idea is that while human services certainly are the experts in child protection, we don't doubt that, but law enforcement and the prosecutor's office also have valuable information that can be brought to bear on those cases. We may know of some collateral information. For example, if there's people in the house with the child in question who have a certain criminal history that may not be conducive to child safety, law enforcement may have something under investigation that hasn't been otherwise publicized, but because that child protection report information is confidential, we can freely share that to make sure that we're making good decisions for the benefit of those children. So that's been a very positive step, not just in our relationship with Minnesota Prairie, but just in making sure that children are kept as safe as they can. And so at that screening stage, if the report is screened in, so to speak, an assessor or investigator will go out and do some further follow-up work, really get more into the weeds about what's going on with that family, what's going on with that child. Even if the report is screened out, there still may be some services that are offered on a voluntary basis. So that would be something like if the family just needs some supports at that time, it's not an immediate danger issue, it's not a physical abuse type of situation. And we want to work with families as much as possible to, as you said, kind of a roundabout way to get to it. We don't want to see all these cases end up in court. It's a very inefficient way for a lot of these things to get dealt with. And still, one of the basic principles of this screening process is, in a lot of cases, families are going to have the solutions themselves and maybe just need some assistance to get there. Certainly, if there's more that's needed, we can respond through Human Services, law enforcement, and our office, County Attorney's Office, if more response is needed, but we don't jump to that automatically.
So you talk about assistance, and you've mentioned already the standard places, Min Prairie, law enforcement, your office. But you have partner organizations. I'd use that word, partner organization.
Yep.
I know we've had Annette, I want to say Frank, at any rate, from Exchange Club,
Yes.
Center for Child.
They do some parent mentoring classes that are very valuable. We also have Children's Mental Health Services through South Central Human Relations Center, very important. Fernbrook Family Center is another one. And we just have a great fabric of nonprofit agencies in Owatonna, in Steele County that are available and are very willing to take in referrals. So maybe it's a housing issue, maybe it's a immediate need for food issue. Sometimes the reports come in that a child is wandering in the halls of an apartment complex and asking for food from neighbors. Well, that's going to generate a report, most likely, and we want to go out and assess that and see, is it a matter of long-term, systematic type neglect, or is it a thing where someone just lost a job, the paycheck didn't come, and they're at an immediate need for food? We don't know on the surface of it, so we have to look into it further to find those things out.
When you talk about getting those reports, the term that comes to my mind is mandated reporter. There are people who are so-called mandated reporters.
Yes.
Working in agency, in healthcare perhaps, whatever the case is. When does something rise to that place where the report needs to come forward because it's come to someone who's, quote, a mandated reporter?
Sure. Mandated reporters covers a wide swath of people. Basically, any publicly employed person who has contact with children, including county attorneys, if you have reasonable belief that there's child abuse or child neglect going on, you're supposed to report. The law does provide some immunity for that, so as long as the report's made in good faith, not as a vengeful type thing or something like that, you're not, even if it's wrong, you're not going to be liable. You're not going to be, it's not going to come back to you, so to speak. So you just have to have a reasonable belief that a child has been either neglected or in danger in some manner, and it just starts that reporting process that I just said, which is really just an initial screen, and then whatever steps might be taken after that point.
Okay. The vast, I'm going to assume this, the vast majority of work has to do with children.
Yes.
But the word adult is in there. So obviously there are vulnerable adults as well.
Absolutely.
Speak to that.
So that's really a whole separate line of business, so to speak, for us. So in the adult protection side, we're also working with Minnesota Prairie primarily, and if there's ultimately a court petition that's filed, they're the petitioner in most instances, and we represent them. So adult protection cases can come up in several different ways. You may have someone who has had a very acute event out in the community. Their mental health or chemical health has gotten to a point where they're a danger to themselves or others, and some intervention may be needed then. Similar to the child protection screening team, we have a pre-petition screening team in the county, which is also a multidisciplinary team, professionals who look at cases before there's a commitment petition decision made. And so some of these cases also come to us through criminal matters. So we may have a person charged with a crime. If their competency is in question, for example, they can ask the court to have an evaluation. If they are deemed not competent, that is supposed to trigger a review for a commitment right away, and the person may be committed on a basis to restore them to competency, or we may ultimately say, their mental health is such that the criminal route is not appropriate. We're going to go with the mental health route, and you can have a commitment for mental health, you can have a commitment for chemical dependence, or a combination of the two. Those are the three most common.
Sure.
If there's not a commitment, which is an involuntary placement for up to 6 months, we can also go the route of a guardianship. If it's a person who has a long-standing condition that they're not going to be able to care for their own needs, and that can often involve a conservatorship too, which is control by another person over their finances.
Okay. And do those people do the public now attorneys? I'm going to say public, not public in your case, but the general community attorneys get involved in that as well?
Yes. The person called the ward will be appointed an attorney to represent their interests in most cases. So, obviously we need to make sure that the person is afforded due process. They're going to have legal counsel through that whole proceeding.
Good. Well, we're going to want to come back to all of that, and I also would like to catch up on, with people who are, because of their history and perhaps of some things that they've done, are incarcerated. How do they fit into this this process as well? And then what about the families who are left out there, that are waiting, for something to happen with that individual, their father, their husband, their spouse, whatever the case is. So quite a lot more to talk about. I know you have some data that you want to push to our viewers as well. So we're going to get to that, and so don't go anywhere.
Okay.
and the same for all of you. Please don't go anywhere. We're going to take some time now for a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. So please stay here.
Amy Swain Hearing Centers is a proud sponsor of the Owatonna Today Show. I'm Dr. Amy Swain, and I want everyone to hear better.
Recreational fires are allowed within the Owatonna city limits. They must be contained within a fire pit or a device designed for such use, and can be 3 feet in diameter and no more than 3 feet high. They must be 25 feet from a building or combustibles. Only untreated or unpainted woods must be used. Fires must be attended by a person at all times that are capable of extinguishing the fire. This has been a safety tip from the Owatonna Fire Department.
Hi, I'm Betsy Linger from the Owatonna Foundation. Your generosity has made Owatonna a better place to live by benefiting our community, the arts, recreation, and education. Please consider a donation today. The Owatonna Foundation is a proud sponsor of the Owatonna Today Show.
At Triumph Graphics, we think beyond ink. That's why you should make us your source for creative concept, design, print, mail, and web. Check us out today at triumphgraphics.com.
Owatonna Public Utilities, real people, real reliable, real progress. Making life a little easier day after day, taking pride in our community, listening to what you say, a voice you can talk to. We're growing with you in mind in everything we do. Owatonna Public Utilities.
Welcome back to the Owatonna Today Show, your community connection, and we're back with Dan McIntosh, a Steele County attorney, talking about adult and child protection services. We talk about mandated reporting. There is the thing in a lot of respects with law enforcement that says if you see something, say something. I got a feeling though that if some people see something, especially when it comes to this kind of issue of abuse, that they're probably not going to want to say something just simply because they want to get involved, right? Speak to that.
Yeah, so that is a concern that people have, and it's a concern people have with any type of public report. We run into that with criminal cases just as well as child protection cases. So there's a few things that should be known about that. Number one is, in a child protection context, the reporter's information is absolutely confidential. So absent, really extreme circumstances and by court order, your identity as a child protection reporter is never going to be known. We can't say that in criminal cases because most of that is just an open book, public proceeding. But that, by Minnesota law, is true for child protection reporters. A lot of our mandated reports come from people in an educational setting, teachers, social workers, people that kids are spending a lot of time with. It may be some real behaviors that come up that really don't have any real explanation, that may be correlated with either physical or sexual abuse. It may be some injuries that are observed. We had a very extreme case in Blooming Prairie where a young girl couldn't walk straight because she had been abused very badly, and a teacher physically abused, and a teacher noticed that and made the report. So we do, as I said before, the increase in reports is a good thing. The worst that's going to happen is someone goes out and investigates it and finds that there isn't anything else to look at, or it's an isolated event, or the child fell off of a swing and got injured. But we want to make sure that children are safe, first and foremost, and we want to encourage people that if they have that concern and it's a reasonable belief, that they certainly make the call, and we're going to have the contact information as part of the show as well.
It just seems, and that's got to be tough when you think about it, that you're going to go to see someone in their home and or someone will be, not you necessarily, your department, and then it's found that there is no cause. There's got to be an awful feeling that's left with the parents, let's say, or of that household, of having been suspected of.
Right.
What's in place, if anything, to help them get through that? Because it's a painting almost of you think that I'm an abuser, and
sure,
I'm not.
And I think a lot of that is handled on the front end with how they approach the family. It's a family-centered process, like I said before, and we start with the presumption that most families can handle their own issues and their own problems, maybe with very minimal outside supports. So if you don't approach it as being at the door saying, I'm here from the government, I'm going to solve all your problems, that helps. But certainly, if someone could be very put off by even the suggestion, and our response to them is, look, the only thing that brought us to this door was wanting to make sure your children are safe. If they're safe, you don't have any issue with Minnesota Prairie, or certainly not with the county attorney's office. So, we can't always control all the reactions that there will be, but we kind of look at making sure we have the right orientation going in, and making sure that we're being very respectful, of course, but obviously getting to the bottom of whether there is a child safety issue or not.
Yeah. I know that, obviously, I'm going to stay with go to the adult thing again, is that the vulnerable adults many times are in facilities.
Yes.
And therefore mandated reporters are probably staffers who are working there.
Right.
And what kinds of things can happen within a facility that will catch the eye of the county attorney's office or Min Prairie and so forth?
Sure. Well, there's a couple different avenues there. Physical and financial are the two main things that come up. Physical could be someone who's directly being abused or hurt by someone. And the other route under the physical category is if they're just being neglected. Their needs are not being taken care of. So you might see some of the awful things that you hear about, some bed sores that, bedding is not being changed, the person is not being cleaned properly. Or you may have a rogue employee who, for whatever reason, is harming the person, either physically or sexually. So anyone in that facility who had a reason to believe that was going on would be a mandated reporter. So that mandated reporting is for children or vulnerable adults. And financially, it's really just looking at, are the person's assets being used for their benefit? Especially if they lack capacity, that's when we have a conservator process, for example, or if the person still has capacity but just has trouble managing money, they can have what's called a rep payee to help them manage their funds. But if someone is kind of siphoning off that person's assets and not using it for their true benefit, then that's going to be an issue, and we're going to respond.
As you've been in the office now for a number of years as an assistant county attorney, now as the county attorney, how are you seeing the tracking of cases? Are they escalating? Is the slope increasingly more steep or steeper, or is there leveling off? What's the history showing?
Well, on the child protection side, our yearly actual court filings are up a little bit, and that's mainly because we're doing more on the truancy side. I haven't talked much about truancy, but that's a whole other flavor of child protection, I guess. The reports go up and up and up, but our court filings have not gone up really at the same rate. And I think what you can attribute that to is there are more efforts being made to kind of intervene early and offer those supports where, in the past maybe either the reports weren't being made and we just didn't know about it, or it would be more of a decision of should we file in court or not file in court. And I think we have more options now that help to avoid some of those filings. On the truancy side, I'll just mention it real quickly. We have a truancy court, and in that situation, that truly is a diversion from the child protection court system. We have children and parents who show up to track their school attendance without going the full gamut of a court proceeding, because we think it's more effective to have them show up more often and have kind of closer monitoring than have a long drawn out court process.
I was thinking too, you're a parent, and your staffers are probably parents in many cases, and all of the folks who are in social work this can be awfully troubling work for you.
Well, it can. I mean, all of our work in the county attorney's office is not always happy business, that's for sure. But the benefit for us is every day that we go to work, we have a chance to make a positive difference. And certainly we are not perfect and we can't be successful in everything that we do, but we can sure know that we have an opportunity to do the right thing. And sometimes that is to proceed in court, but sometimes it's not. And we have to have some judgment and discretion in that route.
We should highlight some contact information that people might be wanting to be aware of or should be aware of, so that if they have some reason to make a call or to announce something to you or, again, to the array
Sure.
of organizations. What
So
can you help us with?
The first is the Minnesota Adult and Abuse Hotline, I guess I'll say. That's a statewide reporting system for any type of adult abuse or vulnerable adult abuse, and that's 844-880-1574. That call will be handled at a statewide call center and then referred to the local agency for follow-up. And then related to that, through the Zumbro Valley Health Center, we have a crisis response line. And that's intended for people who are in an adult mental health crisis. They've actually come here locally and made very good contacts with our law enforcement agencies. So if law enforcement is out dealing with someone in mental health crisis, Zumbro Valley actually dispatches a team of people to help intervene and assist that person. And that number is 844-CRISIS 2. And then for child protection reports through Minnesota Prairie County Alliance, the intake number is 507-431-5725, or you can email those reports at childprotection@minprairie.org.
Excellent. Thank you for all of that. Thanks for the information. Best wishes as you proceed with all of this, and of course to your colleagues, your extended family, if you will, in the work. And thanks for being here, sharing all of that information with us, Dan. I look forward to having you back another time.
Thank you for having me.
Good. And thank you for joining us as well on this very important segment. And we're going to now take a brief pause for some commercial messages, and then we'll be right back. So please stay with us.
Hi, my name is Dave Efforts with TPS Insurance. We're here to handle all your insurance needs. We are a very proud supporter of the Owatonna Today Show.
Hi, welcome back to the Owatonna Today Show, your community connection. Time now for some community announcements. The Steele County Historical Society will be having its 31st annual extravaganza at the Village of Yesteryear from 11:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on July 16th. Admission is free. Lots of good things happening, a lot of good food. You want to be there. Join us this Thursday at 2:00 p.m. and at 7 p.m. in the Gainey Room for movies at the Owatonna Public Library for The Zookeeper's Wife. Also, we are going to once again talk about the 7th Annual Weekend Out, sponsored by Owatonna Park and Rec. A full host of things happening from Friday evening all the way through Sunday. Check the website, Park and Rec, Owatonna Park and Rec website for further information. The next movie in the park, The Great Outdoors, will be shown on Friday, July 14th at Brown Park. The movie begins at sunset with pre-movie activities beginning an hour before the movie. Rain date is Saturday, July 15th at Central Park. And that'll take care of it for today. We're going to look forward to having you back on Friday when we'll have the Owatonna Arts Center Secret Garden Tour and Pam Roberts from OPD to talk about Night to Unite. Thanks for being with us today. We'll look forward to having you back here on Friday.